Yeah.
The first thing is that I ask a question, which is the user prompt, and this gets sent to our Copilot orchestration engine. The orchestration engine is what powers all of our Copilot scenarios. But it doesn't just send your user question directly to the LLM. The first step is a very important piece, which is pre-processing. This is where the LLM does grounding. And grounding is the way that we get enough information to answer your question accurately. It's a big part of how we don't hallucinate. And the way that it gets more information is by calling Microsoft Graph. Simply put, Microsoft Graph is your data. It's your emails and your files, who you're working with, what you're working on, and all of that context and relationship around that data. This is also the part where when you control what users have access to, Microsoft Graph honors that with Copilot. And so in this step, users only have access, and Copilot only has access to the data that you as the user have. Once the orchestration engine says, I have enough information to answer your question, it takes your question, the user, the additional grounding data, and sends it in a modified prompt to the LLM to give the LLM enough information to generate a response. There's also some other modifications to the prompt that we do here where we make sure that we're following our responsible AI principles, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. The large language model will generate a response, and then the next step, I think, is the most important step, which is the post-processing step. So we do additional grounding where we can call the Microsoft Graph, validate that the responses are accurate, make sure that we have the right references and citations, and also check to make sure the response isn't generating harmful content and is still maintaining our commitments to being ethical and fair. Once the orchestration engine decides that there's enough to give a good response, it responds back to the app. And this was a very linear flow that I showed you, but actually the orchestration engine is an iterative process, so it could call the graph multiple times and it can call multiple other skills.
So what is GraphRAG? GraphRAG is really a two-step process. It is first an indexing process that's run over top of private data to create LLM-derived knowledge graphs. These knowledge graphs serve as a form of an LLM memory representation, which can then be used by subsequent steps to then do better retrieval, which leads us to the second step. The second part of it is it's an LLM orchestration mechanism that utilizes those pre-built indices that I just talked about, and then those indices can be used to construct much better, much more empowered RAG operations. And that really leads us to the key differentiators of what GraphRAG allows us to do. The first is it allows us to help enhance search relevancy. This is because it has a holistic view of the semantics across the entire data set. Second, it helps us enable new scenarios that would today require a very large context. For example, doing holistic dataset analysis for trends, summarization, aggregation, things like that.